Hello, friends. Welcome to this episode of the Why We Believe show, where we share stories of faith and conversion of members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. My guest today is Jason Bringhurst. Jason is a father of six. He's a podcaster and a columnist and a business executive and an entrepreneur. Welcome to the Why We Believe show, where members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints share their inspiring stories of faith and conversion to the gospel of Jesus Christ. I'm your host, Nathan Gwilliam. Thank you so much for being with us today, Jason.
Thank you, Nathan. Glad to be here.
So, Jason, can you just start off by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. Pretty average guy. Grew up in a suburb of Salt Lake in the Midvale and Sandy areas. Raised by a single mom, so my grandmother was real influential because she helped me kind of get my roots into the gospel when my mom was really not into the church. Grew up in the Salt Lake area and have had my times when I was less active in the church, and then went on a mission and got married, went to BYU, and have been in the technology field most of my career in one way or another, and so I have some passions that I'm passionate about. Things like BYU football, old cars, my family, and the gospel.
Yeah, so those are some great points I want to talk about there real quick before we go further. BYU football, I share that passion. We had some huge news yesterday. You want to talk about that at all?
Well, I think the with BYU, I have been a little frustrated just not living locally, trying to find out where all the games are going to be on TV. How many different subscriptions do I need to watch the games from Washington? And then occasionally they'll be blocked, which that's really frustrating. But no, I'm a big fan of BYU. So excited for the program, and good things are ahead.
And yesterday we signed Ryder Lyons, one of the best quarterbacks in high school coming into college, and a lot of big colleges competing for him. We were kind of down in the finals with Oregon, and we beat him out, and he announced he's coming to BYU.
So exciting.
We've done really well in recruiting this year. He's arguably one of the maybe two or three best players the BYU's ever recruited. He's that caliber of player.
Right.
So you talked about going from inactive to going on a mission. That's a pretty big jump. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey, that transformation?
Yeah. So I like to say that, I was a teenager that I kind of strayed away from church for a little while. And I like to say that just like Joseph Smith, Moroni came to me, and the clarification of that is my bishop was named Moroni. So Moroni Whitaker, I came to church for one reason. I can't remember why I was at church, but he asked if he could meet with me, and felt like that I should go on a mission. I was completely taken back. I hadn't been to church for a long time. And when I was younger, I'd always thought that I wanted to go on a mission, but I had kind of pushed that aside and not thought about it for a while. And I was 19, and I said, I think that I need to pray about it. And took me on a journey trying to get my own answer. And I had a confirmation that was what I should do. And we laid out the steps of what I needed to change in my life and get back on the path. And it was a real transformational experience, especially my mission really helped to solidify my testimony. But I will say that, I think I have believing blood. I never doubted the church itself. I always knew that what I was doing just wasn't right, wasn't in line with what I should be doing. but I had a testimony of the Book of Mormon. I knew that the church was true, but I just was choosing to walk a different path at that time, and so I needed a little help from my bishop and others to get me back on the path, and was able to serve a mission in Bordeaux, France.
Yeah, that's great. My middle daughter just returned from her mission in France a little over a month ago.
That's
So
awesome.
we love France.
Yeah,
So I want to talk about your mission in a second, but before we do, I want to talk about this kind of theme you've been talking about of a bishop that cared enough to reach out to you, right?
yeah,
A young man that was inactive in his ward, and he cared enough to call you in and challenge you to go on a mission. And just tell me a little bit more about that. I mean, you didn't respond by saying, "Bishop, you're crazy." You responded by saying, "Let me pray about it." That says a lot about where you were, even though you were inactive. Um, you still wanted to do what was right. You still had enough of a relationship with God that you felt you could have that conversation with Him and get an answer.
yeah, yeah. And I think that's so important to maybe not look on the outside. It's real easy to judge. I can imagine um, maybe what I look like, longer hair, hadn't been to church for a while. Good chance I was not wearing a white shirt, and again showed up for church for whatever reason, and but the bishop followed a prompting, and while it maybe didn't make sense looking at the outside, he was following a prompting, and God knows our hearts, and deep down I wanted to be I think at that point I kind of wanted both worlds. I wanted one foot in Babylon and one foot in Zion, and but deep down I knew what I was supposed to be doing, and I think God knows our hearts.
Yeah. Yeah, it speaks to the power of having lifters in our life, filling our lives. You went to church, and as a result of that, you were able to be influenced and lifted by this faithful bishop. And I look at my wife, and I look at a business partner that I've had, and some of these people that have been lifters in my life and have helped lift me to higher levels of spirituality and faith. And I think that can't be overlooked, right?
For sure.
The power of lifters helping us achieve the faith and spirituality and testimony that we're at today. I also want to talk real quick about the power of intergenerational faith building. I was in India last week. We have an office. I run a software company, and I was with our team in Jaipur, India, and one of our two key managers is a woman, and she and her husband run the company, and she talked about how her parents worked, and she learned her faith. She's a Hindu, and she developed her strong faith not from her parents but from her grandparents. And because her parents were working, she ended up going to temple and doing a lot of prayers and things, learning a lot of her faith, building that foundation from her grandmother, not from her mother. And she didn't mean that in any critical way. It was just the power of the parents were working, and the grandparents were able to instill that faith. And I think that conveyance, that transfer of faith from grandparents to kids is so powerful. And you shared about that in your story when as your mom was a single mom and maybe wasn't in a place where faith was quite as important to her. You were able to be lifted, like we were talking a minute ago. Your lifter originally were your grandparents.
Hmm. Yeah.
You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, and specifically, my grandmother on my mom's side. My grandfather I actually never knew. He had passed away by the time I was born. But I've thought a lot about it as an adult. You know, you, she was roughly my age, and all of a sudden found herself taking care of a little boy every day while my mom was working. It's probably not what most people think of retirement to be like, but she sacrificed a lot, and and was extremely influential in me, getting those roots in the gospel, reading the Book of Mormon, introducing me to church and the scriptures, and hearing her testimony about the gospel and the prophet, and her testimony of the Book of Mormon. I don't think we can emphasize enough how much a grandparent or someone else can be an influence in our life when maybe the gospel is not taught in our home. And I mean, in an ideal situation, everyone's having family home meeting every Monday night and going to church together as a family. But as I look at our congregation and others that I've lived in my own life, it's not always like that. And it's a blessing when someone else can step in and kind of be that spiritual role model and mentor and teacher.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very powerful. That's an important role that grandparents and extended family members and other mentors can play.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump over to your mission.
Yeah.
So you spent a couple of years in Bordeaux, France. Can you tell me how that helped shape your spiritual life?
Yeah, for sure. So, not having any siblings or anyone around me, I didn't know, as far as who had gone on a mission, I didn't really know what I was getting into 100%. I I knew of missionaries and that it was something that I felt like I needed to do, but I, kind of jumped in really not really knowing too much about what mission life was like, and then went to the MTC in Provo, and I kind of compare that to like a spiritual greenhouse for me. I loved learning the gospel, and I just kind of caught on fire. I wanted to learn everything I could. I think also I had maybe imposter syndrome where I felt like everyone else was a little further down the road than me. They had a better understanding of the scriptures and the gospel, and I was trying to catch up, and then learning a language on top of it. And But I loved the learning and the spirit that worked on me those 2 months down in Provo. And It was it that that alone was wonderful. I went to France, and I'm a firm believer that the Lord's in the details of our lives. I think my first companion was very key in not my sorry my well yeah my first companion at the MTC, because we became lifelong friends. We're still friends today. We ended up being roommates at BYU afterwards. And he was pivotal, in my very first companion in the MTC, in kind of helping me make that transition from not that long ago, not even being active in the church, to all of a sudden, white shirt and tag and going out preaching the gospel. But once I got to France, I loved the country. I loved the people. I loved teaching. I actually loved tracting. I really loved my mission. I enjoyed almost everything about it, and had a wonderful mission president, two mission presidents, I should say. My first mission president is actually serving as an apostle now, Elder Neil L. Anderson. He was,
Oh,
yeah, he
that's
was
awesome.
a very young Neil L. Anderson back then, by the way. Him and his family were there, and their children were all young. And so he was a wonderful teacher and an example to us. And it's been awesome being one of his missionaries and being able to continue to get together for mission reunions and learn from him. And then my second mission president, also a wonderful mission president, where later on I was able to have some neat experiences with him in his home as a leader in the mission, and his own leader, and having him teach us from the Book of Mormon, and those kind of spiritual defining moments, those times where the Spirit just testified so strongly of the scriptures of the Book of Mormon, and and it changed me. I mean, my mission was transformational. I came back a different person. I mean, I wish I could go back and see that, first of all, the people's faces in the ward when I said I was going to go on a mission. And then second, when I came home and the person I had become, I'm sure that people just went home like, wow, what happened?
The transformational power of the gospel of Jesus Christ, of the
Exactly.
covenant path. Yeah. So how was How has your life been better because of that transformational journey that you chose to go on?
It changed the trajectory of my life in so many ways. While I was on a mission, my second mission president recommended that I apply to BYU. I was going to Salt Lake Community College beforehand, had no plans to go to BYU whatsoever, and ended up applying and got in somehow. I, it was a miracle. I didn't have the best of grades in high school, but I did really well at Salt Lake Community College, and it was there where I met my wife, and it was there where I decided what my career would be. I continued learning French and got a minor in French, which helped my career path. And so it really kind of changed the way things went, and I can't see how that all would have happened if I hadn't gone on a mission. Um, so for me, yeah, it's been super influential in my life. And of course, I hearken back to some of those experiences still. I as a bishop today, I work with the youth. I'm always telling them stories about my mission, things that I learned there, and it's been very key to my testimony and my life in the gospel.
Okay, so you're currently serving as a bishop. Can you share with us how that calling has affected your faith and your testimony?
Yeah, the thing that I've learned, not too long ago, I was sitting up on the stand looking at the congregation during sacrament meeting, and I could almost tell a struggle that every single person was going through in the ward. Um, and you get to know that everyone has something. Everyone has some type of issue that they're dealing with, and I love this. There's a quote from Elder or President Irene, if I can share it, that he was talking about when he was a counselor to a district president, and he said, this district president said, "Hal, when you meet someone, treat them as if they're in serious trouble, and you'll be right more than half the time." And President Irene went on to say, not only was he right, but he learned that he maybe underestimated it. So I've learned the same thing as a bishop, that I just have so much compassion, and empathy for my congregation in a way that I don't think could be possible other than maybe the Relief Society president kind of going through the same thing with the members of the ward. You get to love them in a very special way.
Yeah, I love it. Is there a story from your mission, maybe a conversion story of somebody that you worked with that you would like to share?
Yeah, France was a difficult area. The French people are awesome. We had some success, luckily, and one of the families that we taught was a refugee family from Zaire, from Congo, and we knocked on the door. Sister Mwamba, or she wasn't Sister Mwamba at that time, but she answered, and her husband wasn't home, and we left a Book of Mormon and asked if we could come back when he was there, and we came back the next day, and his name was Etienne Kapinga Mwamba. He had read the pages which we had earmarked and asked them to look at, and had started already the Book of Mormon, and was eager to learn more. And we started teaching him regularly. He didn't want to have his family start learning about it. He wanted to kind of vet us first and find out what it was about before we met with the family. He had 2 daughters and his wife. And so we taught him the discussions back then. We had the 6 discussions, and he was always, it seemed like, a step ahead of us. We got to the discussion about tithing, And as a missionary, my faith was a little weak on how do I ask a refugee who has next to nothing. I mean, they fled the country, um, seeking asylum to try and save their lives. And he had been a captain in the army, and then there had been a coup, and so all of a sudden he was wanted, and they left the country, and so they are in this little apartment with next to nothing, and we have to teach them about tithing. And my understanding and faith of tithing was not where it should have been. And so we present this to him, and he looks at me and says, I've always felt that I was robbing God. There's a scripture. And he goes on to quote how will a man rob God, and we turn to the scripture and we're like, yeah, to read,
Right here in Malachi. Yep.
And he said, I just didn't know how to pay tithing. I felt like I should be paying tithing. He was excited that there was a way that he could pay tithing. And he ended up being baptized. I went home, and then later the sister missionaries taught his wife and two daughters, and they were later baptized. Wonderful family, and he stayed active his life. My wife and I had the chance to go back several times to France, and he ended up um, having some type of coma. We went and was able to give him a blessing, and that was the last time that I ever saw him. He never recovered, but wonderful family, wonderful experience, and again, me not having the faith in tithing was silly because he had all the faith in the world.
So, Jason, is there another story from your mission you'd like to share that helped increase your faith?
Yeah. So at the very end of my mission, we finished teaching Brother Mwamba, and I'm heading home on a train to Bordeaux from the southern part of France, where I was in a city called Pau. And there happens to be a sister missionary going home that same day as well. So we board the train. I help her with her luggage, and we get to this big train station in Bordeaux. And so I bring my suitcases down to the area where you get off the train and deboard. And I went back into the train to help this sister with her suitcases. I came down, and the missionaries from the office were already there taking luggage to the van. And we get to the van, and I have this big suitcase that's missing. It's actually a big duffel bag that I had bought just to go home so I could fit everything in it. I had bought chocolate and souvenirs, and in the side of that suitcase, I had put all of my mission journals, and it was gone. And I ran back to the train, and the train was taking off on a one-way to Paris. And I was heartbroken. I mean, you can imagine all of your mission journals are gone.
So sad.
And I was just devastated. And so, we rode back to the mission office, and my mission President Olson, I went straight to him and said, look, this is what happened. And he said, I'll call the mission president up in Paris and see if they can go look through the train when it gets there. And so he does that, and then I went into the bathroom, locked the door, and got on my knees and just prayed. That was all I could do. There's nothing more that I could do at this point. And I was, just that feeling in your stomach that something terrible had just happened, and there's absolutely nothing I could do about it. And later that day, the mission president called and said, we sent a couple elders down to the train station. They went through the train. They found an empty duffel bag. It was completely gone. They even stole my mission shoes that were like worn out. Everything was gone except for that pocket still had my mission journals in it.
Oh, so the things that really mattered were still there.
The things that really mattered were still there, and it was just a tender mercy. And they had a missionary who's coming home pretty soon to Salt Lake, and so we were able to meet up. He brought the mission journals back to Salt Lake, and I was able to get them. And it's awesome because in my patriarchal blessing, it talks about how I should keep a journal. And throughout my life since my mission, I've referenced those journals so many times And it's actually helped with some of the writing that I've done. And I just, all the time think, what a miracle that I was able to get those back. And um, thankfully, my mission president acted quickly, and the mission president in Paris acted quickly. The elders that ran there, I'm sure they could imagine how important those mission journals were to me. But most of all, I think Heavenly Father knew how important those mission journals were, and it was just a tender mercy that I got them back.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that you had the faith to ask. I think a lot of people in that situation would have said, there's no way, there's nothing I can do. They're gone. And that you had the faith to ask for something seemingly impossible, and to not feel bad about asking God to give you something seemingly impossible. And I think that's an expression of great faith. And with greater faith, you open the door to greater miracles.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a neat experience. Yeah.
Okay. So earlier you talked about that quote that, if you treat everybody as if they're going through something really difficult, you're going to be right most of the time. Can you tell us about a few of the really difficult things that you're comfortable sharing that you've gone through in your life, and how those really big challenges have affected your faith and testimony?
Yeah. It's interesting. I was self-employed for a long time, and had a business in Orem, Utah, and things were going really well. We had 5 children, and it just kind of was bothering me how much we were paying for health insurance every month, being self-employed. And I remember one day asking my wife, I'm like, what if we just put this money into a savings account instead of having health insurance? And we've never been to the hospital except for childbirth, and luckily she was smart enough to say, that's a terrible idea, Jason.
He was right.
And luckily we kept our health insurance, because we hadn't gone through many trials up to that point. And we had our 6th child, Xavier, and he was born premature, 3 months premature. And he developed something called hydrocephalus, which is pretty common with premature babies. And of course, we're sitting in the ER Googling what hydrocephalus is. We had no idea what this is, but he was transferred up to the Primary Children's Hospital, and spent a couple months up there. And I always worry about telling the story because I'm sure I'm going to get a few details wrong. My wife will be like, you got that wrong, but overall, the the point of the story is that he was born very premature, and he develops this hydrocephalus, which requires brain surgery. There's no treatment for it. They have to put in a mechanical shunt into the brain to drain the fluid out of the brain. And it's very common that they become infected, and it requires the brain surgery all over again.
That is a scary thing to go through.
It's terrifying. And so Xavier, I honestly have lost count, but well over 20 surgeries, both at Primary Children's Hospital, and then when we moved to Washington at Seattle Children's Hospital. He's had multiple brain surgeries. Another tender mercy is he has not had one since I was called as bishop. So for the past 4.5 years, there's been no surgeries. But just before that, he had a scare and a surgery. And
So you're saying you want to stay in for another 18 years as bishop, right?
Very conflicted, yes. So yeah, going through that, I remember standing in the NICU. I didn't even know what a NICU was before that, but it's where the babies are in the ICU, and putting my fingers on his head. I couldn't. His head was way too small to put our hands on the head, but to give a blessing, probably 3 fingers fit on his little head. And I remember hesitating just for a second and being faced with your faith. Do I have the faith to give this little baby a blessing who is in critical need right now? And just for a split second, that pause, like, do I have this faith? And gave him a blessing, and many blessings since then, but had a very strong feeling that angels were around us. The NICU, primary children's and anywhere, I'm sure, it's a bit of a sacred place. There's children on the cusp of death, and we unfortunately saw other children around us pass away, and saw families grieve there. Xavier, luckily, there is a treatment. There's no cure, but there is a treatment, and it was a trial. And I think back, like, I was like on board with getting rid of insurance. That seemed like a good idea to me.
That would have wiped you guys out completely.
Yeah, well, and it almost did anyway, because we had a high deductible insurance, and we hit that high deductible year after year after year, and because these surgeries kept happening, these infections kept happening, and the shunt kept stopping, and so I got to know all about insurance and how important it was, and so that was a huge trial of our faith. You want me to continue with
Yeah, my wife's had brain surgery as well and has a stent in her brain, and
oh wow.
I can share a little bit of understanding. Like, we've only been through it once, not 20 times like you, but
Yeah.
how expensive that is. But the cost really doesn't matter because you're wanting to do everything humanly possible to help that person you love to heal.
So we move up to Port Angeles, and we moved up here to take care of my wife's parents. She's from Port Angeles, and her father had Parkinson's, and her mother had a form of cancer, and so we moved up here and started taking care of them. And then COVID happened, and I had just moved my business up to Port Angeles, with the different ways that had been technologies that had come out. I was able to run my business remotely, and moved it up to Port Angeles. But then COVID happened, and COVID really severely and adversely affected my business. And so I am a bishop. Our business is tanking, and I'm trying to keep it afloat, wondering how long we can go without being paid. Can I turn this thing around? And finally, general conference was coming up, and I just said, I've got to put this to prayer and get an answer, this general conference, to what I should do. And you'd think maybe that, well, you're doing everything right, you're bishop, things are not going to go south, things will turn around for you. And I got the answer during general conference to walk away from that business and go look for a job after 16 years. I mean, I think part of it was pride. I think part of it was like, I can do this. I can turn this around. I am not going to need to, go find a job. And I think the Lord was teaching me that, we're all susceptible to failure, to adversity, and it was a humbling experience to be back in the job market again, looking for a job after having run my own business for so long, and to know that the business was never going to become what I had always hoped that it would, and to find myself back, working for another company again. It was a tough situation, and then nothing else could go wrong, right? My my daughter, I have 6 children. Our second oldest was a student at the University of Utah, in journalism communications major, and she was heading to a wedding in California, and the something happened. The car somehow rolled. No other cars involved. They think that her friend was driving and overcorrected, and the car rolled and she was killed instantly. And um,
I'm so sorry.
yeah, thank you. And
I can't
so
even imagine going through that. That
yeah, I mean it, and you can't. I mean it's not something you can prepare for. And I remember, people coming up to me and saying, I don't know what to say. And you don't have mortal words to comfort. All you can do is, be there and support someone in this type of situation. We went out to Winnemucca, Nevada, where it happened. We had to identify her and bring the body. We decided to have her buried in Utah. And it was a terrible, terrible experience. But somehow the Lord blessed us to have the peace that we needed to get through it all. And all these trials, I think, can either drive someone away from God or drive you to your knees. And for us, I think our relationship with God is maybe at a deeper level than could have ever been otherwise. I mean, you'd never choose this kind of stuff, This is not the kind of thing that you would ever want to happen, but
this is the compensatory blessing.
yeah. And and I, again, over and over, have found myself in these situations where I've done all that I could. There's nothing left to do. And so I'm on my knees and I'm praying for God to direct me. And what 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 I've found is that, through the atonement of Jesus Christ, things can be made right. And while it's not going to happen in mortality, I have this incredible peace that it will be made right, that everything will be made right, and that we just have to put all of our faith in Jesus. And he is the only one that can give us the type of peace. And when people would come and say, I don't know what to say, that's because they don't have that ability that God has to bring that peace to our hearts. And I learned that it is only through him that we'll find the peace that we desperately seek in those type of situations.
I love it. Thank you for being willing to share those very personal and tender situations, um, and that core message of we'll all go through challenges, um, and it's up to us whether we choose to turn to God or away from God. And when we choose to turn to Him, He can help us through those situations, and help us come closer to Him and develop a stronger faith and testimony. Um, Jason, in conclusion, why do you believe?
I think the thing which makes me believe is in these times of trials, and also in times that are good, when we look to God, he blesses us, these compensatory blessings that we get. And to never take credit for anything that he gives us, recognize his hand in everything. I mean, he loves us. He loves his children so much. As a bishop, I have felt it, that his love for the members of my ward, both the ones who are stalwart there every week, that stick around and put away the chairs at the end of activities, to the ones that never come. He loves them all. And I love the scripture that was just in our Come Follow Me. Wherefore, be not weary in well doing, for ye are laying the foundation of a great work, and out of small things proceedeth that which is great. I love that each of us can be a small thing. We're a teeny Lego in the work of God. And, but if we can be that one Lego piece, maybe that's an important thing that we can help contribute to the kingdom. And I believe, because I've seen those compensatory blessings, I believe because I've felt over and over the love that my Heavenly Father has for me. I've felt the atonement of Jesus Christ working in my life to bring the peace that no other way could have brought that kind of peace into my life with the tragedies that and trials that we've had. There are small things, but the Lord just wants our heart, and to be willing and obedient. And I know that He will bless us when we are. Some of those blessings may not come in this world, and that's hard. That itself can be a trial, that we have to wait for those blessings. But I know it's true.
Yeah, it is true. And thank you for that message. When we choose to turn to Him, He will bless us.
Yeah.
Thanks for being with us today, Jason.
Thank you so much.